want to call this regular City Council meeting of October 5th to order. The invocation tonight is going to be done by Pastor Steve Pleasance from the Radiant Church.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And on behalf of Pastor Greg and Radiant Church, we wanted to say we know it's been a really tough year. So to you and your team and the council, thank you for your hard work and dedication, and thank you for leading strong. So we'll finish stronger than we started. And so with that, let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we are so thankful for another day in your presence. And Lord, tonight be with us. Lord, we want to pray over our great city of Surprise. Lord, I want to pray over our mayor, Skip Hall. Lord, his staff, and Lord, this council and this chamber, Lord, that you would be with us tonight, Lord. Be in our conversations, Lord. Give them strength. Lord, give them godly wisdom and knowledge. Lord, to think through all the things that they need to think through. Give them steadiness in the storm, Lord, and give them peace. Peace in this chamber, peace in this city. And Lord, we'll be forever grateful and give you the glory and the honor for all things. And we pray and ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Could I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Mayor Hall.
Here.
Vice Mayor Judd.
Here.
Councilmember Sanders.
Here.
Councilmember Remley.
Here.
Councilmember Duffy.
Here.
Councilmember Winters.
Here.
Councilmember Hayden.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, could you all join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I have a proclamation tonight. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And as such, I have a proclamation I'd like to read and present to advocates from the Sojourner Center. Are they here tonight? Oh, okay, great. I'll come down there. Let me put my mask on, okay?
You walk too fast for me.
Thank you. Proclamation from the Office of the Mayor. Whereas domestic violence is a widespread epidemic affecting millions of Americans each year, regardless of race, age, gender, and income level. Whereas 1 in 3 American adults have been the victim of an act of domestic violence in their lifetime. Whereas 1 in 15 American children are exposed to domestic violence each year. Whereas children who witness domestic violence often grow up believing that physical and emotional cruelty is acceptable in relationships, and thus tend to perpetuate the cycle of violence in society. Whereas a coordinated community effort on the part of community leaders, police, judges, advocates, healthcare workers, and concerned Americans working together will aid in developing solutions to this problem and improve our responses when it occurs. Whereas many federal, state, and local programs addressing domestic violence have achieved success, bringing greater safety to families, and whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for citizens to learn more about preventing instances of domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and people who provide advocacy and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that I, Skip Hall, Mayor of the City of Surprise, do hereby proclaim the month of October in the year 2020 to be Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Surprise. And I hereby call upon all citizens to not only recognize this important event, but to work together to eliminate domestic violence from our community. This is signed for you, okay? Very good. If you notice, we're wearing purple. Did you notice City Hall is all purple at night? Isn't that cool? Yeah. Okay.
We're so grateful for you guys having
Okay.
us. Thank you.
You want a picture?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay, city manager report.
No report tonight, Mayor.
Okay. City clerk report.
Yes, I do have a PowerPoint, a short PowerPoint. I'll just need a moment to set it
Okay.
up, Mayor. So as you're well aware, it is election time. General election 2020. So I wanted to do a presentation to kind of give you an idea of some changes that have taken place over the last few days. Early voting starts tomorrow. We're one of the, what they call the voting centers in the West Valley. And so we're going to be a 27-day early voting site. Early ballots will be starting to be mailed out tomorrow, as well as voting in person here at City Hall. Everyone who's on the early voting list, the permanent early voting list, will receive a ballot hopefully by either this Saturday or Monday, depending on the mail service. One of the things I wanted to make you aware of, voter registration. The actual voter registration deadline was yesterday at 5 p.m. To be able to register in person, and or by 11:59 for if you've registered online. One of the things that we found out this morning, late last night, there was a court ruling through the U.S. District Court, and the filing was, the judge ruled to extend the voter registration to October 23rd. So where we're at right now, we have not received any guidance from the county or the state. We're going to continue accepting voter registration right up to they make their decision. They'll let us know.
Okay.
We'll have a ballot replacement and ballot drop-off box located here at City Hall. If someone wants to drive over here and drop off their ballots, they're welcome to do that. As a month ago, we only had one polling location designated for surprise. And so in the meantime, they've had several changes. So now we have actual 4 sites that people will be able to drop off their ballots or vote in person, except for the stadium. That's going to be a ballot drop-off box location only. And the numbers or the dates and the times are listed here. That information went out to all of our voters. And if there's any changes, we'll update that information and send it out to everyone.
Sherry,
Yes,
could I ask you a question? Mm-hmm. And site
absolutely.
number 2, is that the 24th through the 31st?
So that's starting on October 24th. There's just 5 designated dates for ballot drop-off there at the stadium, which is 10/24.
It's just the 24th and then the 31st.
Yeah, 10/31.
Okay.
11/1, 11/2, and then on Election Day, 11/3. So as you remember, voting here at City Hall, we were very busy. We were one of the only sites out in this location. So I feel really good that they were able to get us at least a couple more sites, which are Site 3, Happy Trails Resort. Excuse me. They're going to be open just for a few days, but that will help significantly in the Far West Valley. And then also Spirit of Grace Lutheran Church. The reason why the polling locations are limited is because of COVID. So all the years in the past, they've been able to utilize schools and also churches. So Spirit of Grace stepped up in our largest voting district, which is Sun City Grand. So that's going to be a big help on 11/2 and all day on Election Day as well. At those locations, they'll be able to take the ballot drop-offs there as well. So any location, you're able to drop off your ballots if you received an early ballot. One of the things that we wanted to make our residents aware that if you know of someone that needs a special accommodation for voting, excuse me, the elections department has a special board set up to where if you call their direct line 602-506-1511, they'll be able to send out an actual assistance board to someone that is disabled. They're not able to go to a polling location to vote. So I feel really good that they have a good system in place. And so if you know of anyone, if you want to make us aware, we can certainly make those arrangements with the county.
Great.
Drive-up voter assistance. This was really popular in the August primary. I understand that there was 22 instances where the staff inside the building here went out to assist voters that drove up. On the court side, the surprise court where they have the disabled parking, there'll be 2 parking spots with a sign that somebody drives up, they can call in, and someone from the elections department will go out and assist them, bring out their ballot to their car to vote. We had a couple of situations where someone drove up that had COVID. And so, not coming into the building, the county was able to go out and assist them. So
Great.
it's a good program, and I'm glad that people are taking advantage of this. And so, as we were saying earlier, October 5th was the registration deadline. As of right now, the 23rd is what the ruling was, but if that changes, we'll definitely keep you posted on that. Ballots are being mailed out tomorrow. Last day to request a ballot by mail is October 23rd if you're not on that list. And October 24th, weekend voting starts. So we'll have weekend voting here. They'll be closed on the 25th, which is Sunday, with the following weekend, they'll have voting here at City Hall. And then get your ballots back in the mail no later than October 27th. If you are not comfortable with mailing your ballots, which we've had a lot of phone calls on, just drop them off here at City Hall, and they're picked up daily by the elections department. And then November 3rd, we're open 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. The information that went out in the surprise progress is already outdated because there's been changes made. So as it stands right now, the times and locations that I gave to you is what is current. And so Election Day, 6 to 7, that's for voting in person and ballot drop-off. This is a program through Maricopa County Elections, BeBallotReady.vote. You should really check this out, because if you vote by mail, you can register online. I actually did this through the last election and the time before. You register online, it'll tell you when your ballot was mailed out to you. It will tell you and give you text alerts when they receive your ballot back at the county, and let you know when it's ready for processing and when it's been processed. So this is really good. People are wondering about that process and how long it takes. So you can just go online, check this out, and then you'll be able to tell where you stand with your ballot processing. And that is basically my report. I will give you updates as they come in.
We've got all these dates on our website, Sherry? Okay,
Absolutely.
good. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Is there anyone from the public that wants to speak to us on a non-agendized item?
No comments, Mayor.
No comment, okay. All right, we've got quite a few consent agenda items. Is there any items that want to be pulled?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to pull item number 9, please.
Item number 9, okay. Okay. Could I have a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda? Minus item number 9.
I move to approve the consent agenda minus item 9.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Okay. Councilman Sanders?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to table item number 9 for our first meeting in November, which is now November 2nd.
Okay. All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Mayor, I just wanted to announce we have the applicant for the Irish Wolfhound liquor license on the phone, and just wanted to let Amy know that your item was approved. So thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, regular item number 21.
Consideration and action pertaining to approval of a zoning tax amendment to regulate municipal towers, ordinance 2020-17. Mayor, this is a public hearing.
Okay. Hey, Bart.
Good evening. Tonight, I will be bringing forward to you a zoning text amendment regarding wireless facilities. In particular, this is going to be addressing municipal towers. Municipal towers are basically towers for a city purpose on city property. Introduced the municipal towers. We also did a couple other things. We did some general house cleaning of the text. Also revised the timetables to reflect state and federal regulations, which is a bit of a moving target at times. And like I said, municipal towers are a tower erected on city property for the purpose of wireless and radio services to support public safety services. Tonight I have with me in the audience, we also have representatives from police, fire, IT, and from Public Works, as these are departments that are going to be very much utilizing this ordinance. Now, we did early in the year meet with the Planning Zoning Commission, and at that time we had tower heights of tower ratio of the distance from the property line equal to the height of the pole. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission raised concerns about that for a couple reasons, how this is going to look for residential properties and, and how that would on future properties. So what we did is we broke down the towers into two types. Type A, these are ones that require increased heights to have a line of sight. For example, we have a small tower at one of the Marley Park facilities that has a line of sight to that. But with the growing of Marley Park, there's some two-story homes that got in there, and now there's inconsistent readings on that. So this is the type of thing that this is going to be taken care of. And then we're going to have the Type B towers. And these are located properties that are smaller and are located near to residentially zoned properties. So going into each one of these individually, the Type A, these are the large towers that are going to be set back quite a bit. They're going to be set back a distance equal to greater than twice the height of the tower to any residentially zoned properties, whether they're developed or undeveloped. This is a little bit of a graphic showing that the tower height and the property line and the residential sign. So 2 times the tower height. For an example, this is one of our treatment plants. So this is a very large 142-acre site, and let's just say a 150-foot tower require a 300-foot buffer. And so anything in the red would be restricted from building a tower in that area. The Type B towers are, again, city-owned. They will be disguised as a monopole, monopine, or other similar design. And these will maintain a setback equal to or greater than the height of the municipal tower from residentially zoned properties. And again, a little bit of a graphic showing a monopine in there. And this is the typical application for this. This is a well site. And so, it's going to be able to be located within that area. But keep in mind that these will be disguised as hopefully we're not as much monopalms. So we had our first monopine, and we're looking forward to our deciduous tree soon. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I don't see any questions, Bart, so you've done a pretty good job.
Oh, thank you, sir. It was a team effort.
Was it? Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
Good. Okay, I think we're, oh yeah, this is a public meeting.
Yes.
Thanks. So I'll open it up to the public. Does anybody from the public have anything to say about this? No? I'll close the public meeting and ask for a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-16.
Second. Been moved and seconded. If there's no other questions, please cast your vote.
That's a unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
All right, item number 22.
Consideration and action pertaining to an amendment to Surprise Municipal Code, Chapter 2, Article 7, Section 2-269, Notice of Official Possession of Unclaimed Property by allowing publication of the official city website or social media account as an alternative to newspaper publication, Ordinance 2020-25.
Welcome.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm going to take this off. Mayor, council members, good evening. Let me introduce myself. My name's Christine DeSanti, and I'm a commander over the Administrative Services Division at the police department. One of the units that I oversee is our property and evidence unit, and they happen to come into contact with unclaimed property. So there are many different ways that we come into contact with property. When we arrest subjects, they have property on their person that we take into possession. Officers, employees, our public members, they are out in our parks and on our streets, and they happen to come across property laying in the street or in the park. We have lots of bikes that are left on the roadway with no owners, to notify them of what those bicycles may belong to. Sorry, I'm getting confused here. So, excuse me. So these items that are found out in our communities are, what do people do with that property? They're going to contact us. They're going to contact the police department. We're going to go out and we're going to bring these property items into our property and evidence facility. What we do in the police department in our property and evidence facility is we look to reunite this property with its rightful owner. So if there's an address, if there's some sort of identifying information, then we do everything we can to try to reunite this property back to its rightful owner. We send a notice out, and if after 30 days they've not responded back to us in regards to locating their property, then that property can be turned over to anyone who may have found that property, or we have to advertise as unclaimed property. And currently we do that in the newspaper. Until the last few years, notice of unclaimed property was solely published in a newspaper with circulation in the city of Surprise. We use the Surprise Daily Independent for this purpose. Readership of local newspapers has been declining due to technology, and a trend is developing to push these notices using city, county websites, and social media sites. The intent of the city and police department processes are first to try to reunite the property to its rightful owner. An option that we'd like to recommend is to publish on the city's website or social media site, so we're more likely to be able to reunite people with their property due to the technology advantage. One thing that I'd like to make note is that our procurement division recently changed their internal policies. So their internal policies now allow them the ability to advertise on the city website. Therefore, the change we're recommending would also ensure that there would be consistency in these types of processes for notifications. So, any comments or questions?
I don't see any questions, really. You're talking about saving money with very little value.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Councilman Renly.
Councilmember Renly?
After you advertised it and nobody comes to claim it, what do you do with it?
There are a variety of things that we can do with the property, depending on the value of the property.
Let's say it's a bicycle.
It's a bicycle. Then that's something that we would probably send to auction. So, and then the city would, the proceeds from that auction would go into the
Does the
general
city
fund.
have an auction?
Yes, sir. So we have our own city auction. It's not open right now, but we do have our own
Does that
auction.
get advertised in the paper, or does that get advertised on the website, or where does that get advertised?
Yes, they do advertise on their website.
Okay. Well, my reaction when I first read about this was, well, I think it's kind of cool that we put that on the website. Not so sure about the social media, whether that has, normally when you say, well, it should be published in an article of broad circulation within the city or within whatever the municipality is. I don't think social media qualifies for that. Maybe broad circulation within the United States if it's Facebook, but anyway. isn't there, I'm grasping, I'm thinking, well, gee, it'd be a nice idea if we had it on both places, but to eliminate the newspaper, have we created a legal problem? For example, a couple of years ago, and I think the vice mayor will remember this very well, there was $10,000 found. Was it 10,000?
It was 5,500.
$5,500 found going through the sorting machine at Waste Management.
Right.
And I guess everybody went crazy when that happened. But what did you do about that?
Councilmember Remley, I'm not sure what happened with
I
that.
can answer that for you if you want. They turned it over to the police, and then the police did their investigation, couldn't find an owner, then they donated to charity.
Right.
So was that advertised in the newspaper, or was it on the website, or how was it at? How was
Could
it
have been a lot of
handled?
takers, probably.
Yeah. Yes, Councilmember
Because I would have
Remley.
answered that ad, you know, I mean.
Yes. You would have to have a lot of details. We would make notice.
But, you know,
Yes.
the concern to me is, are we covering our legal bases in the notification if it isn't in a newspaper of publication within the jurisdiction?
Yes, I believe the Arizona State Revised Statute just advises that we have to make notice.
I see Harold
Doesn't
Brady
specify
getting all
us-
antsy over there, so.
You can come up, Harold.
Mayor, Councilmember Emily, she's exactly right. The statute just mentions notice. It doesn't specify how it has to occur.
Okay,
And so consequently, if we do it any one of those ways, all three of those ways, two of those ways, we're going to be fine.
okay, cool. Thank you.
And Mayor and council members, I did want to clarify that we're not taking out the newspaper option. We are merely adding additional avenues that we can post to make notification to our public. So newspaper would still be in there or still be part of the notification if we want it to be. We're just adding to our public outreach.
Councilman Sanders, did you have some?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and I think the goal here is just to find property to the rightful owner, right?
Correct, sir.
So I think if it's newspaper, social media, whatever it is, you're right. There are people that aren't on social media, but you said, and I thought I read in here, the recovery rate is very low in the paper.
Yes.
And I think, yeah, however you can find the rightful owner of their property, I think is a goal here. So I like it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you, sir.
All right, item number 23. Oh, we got to vote, yeah. We should vote on that.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-25.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please cast your vote. Okay.
That's a unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Okay, item number 23.
Consideration and action pertaining to the Surprise Community Outreach Program, SCOP, funding recommendations for fiscal year 2021 by the Council Subcommittee on Community Outreach Partnerships and Grants.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I stand before you today to talk about one of my favorite things, the Surprise Community Outreach Grant Program. Just to refresh your memories, the program's purpose is to support local nonprofit organizations that serve the City of Surprise residents. The Surprise Subcommittee on Community Outreach, Partnership, and Grants makes the funding recommendations, which is why I stand before you today. The subcommittee members are Vice Mayor Chris Judd, who also serves as chair, and council members Dave Sanders and Nancy Hayden. The guidelines must be a 501c3, must submit a new application with every program cycle. And I think it's important to state that this program was never established to sustain any one program from the same nonprofit. We like to utilize the funding for events, programs, activities that take place in the City of Surprise and serve the Surprise residents. They must include a proposed budget as part of their application. Reporting is required. Recipients will acknowledge the City of Surprise in a press release that they received the grant funding. Funds are provided on an invoice/reimbursement basis. The maximum award per applicant is $10,000. And a few years ago, you increased the allocation. It was originally $75,000, but council increased it to $100,000, which it still is today. So the subcommittee met on Wednesday, September 10th for a 5-hour meeting. $108,364. I also want to add that we had to reject 4 applications because they weren't complete. So we really would have received 40 had we received those 4 complete applications, which is the most we've ever received for this program. So as you can see on your screens, these are the funding recommendations from the subcommittee. So 13 nonprofits did not receive any funding recommendation from the subcommittee, but the remainder did. And I'll leave those up on the screen. But if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them, or I can defer to Chair Judd.
Vice Mayor Judd, have you got anything that you want to say about this process? You guys did such a great job. It only took you a couple hours to do this, right?
Yeah, just a couple hours. You know, it's just a short 5.5-hour session, and it was a challenge. And there's a lot of great charities out in our community that have a lot of needs, and we did what we could to support them all. And I want to say, you know, a big thank you to Councilwoman Hayden and Councilman Sanders for bearing through that whole thing. And at the end, when we ran out of money, we were sort of going back to people we'd awarded money to and swiping a little bit from them to try to get, and then finally we said, all right, we're out of money. We're done.
Yeah.
And so really, if you look at the list and you look at some of the people who didn't get money, or if you have any questions on how we did it, you can watch the 5.5-hour video, or you can just ask.
Yeah. No, I, for one, am very, very grateful for you guys and all your work doing this, because I know it was a big time commitment. And it was like 5.5 hours, I think.
Yeah, and that was just our meeting. You know, Jody and her team were tasked with compiling all that information, reviewing all the applications, and you guys did a fantastic job.
Thanks. It was a team effort.
Okay.
Question?
I have a question to the Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Vice Mayor, you know, a couple years ago, up to 2 years ago, it was at 70,000, I believe. Is that correct, Jody?
75.
75? And we increased it to $100,000 at the time, having the same situation that we still have today, where the requests are and the needs are a great deal more than the money we have to allocate, you know? Based on this year and your 5.5 hours of presentations, how are you feeling about the amount of allocation that we have from the city? How are you feeling about that number?
Yeah, so 100,000 is a good amount, and I mean there was 300,000, over 300,000 was asked for, and a lot of the charities we turned down were doing fantastic work in the community. It would have been nice to have more money, you know, to either give more money to some of the charities that we gave some money to, or to include more of the charities that we just completely ran out of money on. So as you'll notice, there's very few of these, if any. There's very few of these that actually got the amount. I think it was just one that got the amount they asked for. Everyone else got less than what they asked for, or nothing at all. So more money would always be helpful in this program. And the nice thing about this is these charities, it's a lot of volunteers, it's a lot of community work. And so $1 to these guys will go about 5 or 10 times further, you know, multiple times further than they would be if, say, we as a government try to do the same type of program.
Right.
So it's money well spent. We do get a lot of bang for our buck.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then also I want to add, the Rotary Club of Surprise got some money, and I had excluded myself from any conversation about the Rotary Club. Let those guys figure it out what they're going to do. And the reason being is I'm involved with the Rotary Club. So as we vote tonight, again, I'm going to abstain from voting because it's money that would go to an organization that I'm on the foundation of.
Okay. Okay. All right. So if there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 funding recommendations from the Council Subcommittee on Community Outreach Partnerships and Grants as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. No other questions? Please cast your vote.
Six yes vote, 1 abstained. Vice Mayor Judd. item, Mayor. Consideration and action pertaining to an amendment of the fiscal year 2021 budget by reallocating appropriations of $9,537,400 and amending fiscal year 2021 contract awarding authority list, resolution 2020-126.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I feel like it's been years since I last saw you, but I guess it was just June. So as promised, we said we would bring back a financial update of how we were doing in 2020. So we wanted to do that along with a little budget amendment, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So as you know, we adopted our FY21 budget flat. We made sure that we were mindful of the current economic conditions. We presented a completely different version of the budget than we had originally planned. I know we presented one at the budget retreat, and then we completely changed everything in it, stripped everything out just to be as cautious as possible. We were planning for the worst, but hoping for the best. So we kind of want to give you an update on what that is. We did build in some flexibility and some contingency should we come to a point where our financials are coming back to marry up with what we were hoping to do before. So with that, we're going to go into an FY20 financial status update. So first, I want to say that when COVID hit, which was typically, I think it was back in March, we took immediate action. We did a hiring freeze. We eliminated all non-essential spending. And then we did continuous evaluation. So we looked at our asset replacement. We looked at our capital projects. We were like, okay, which ones can we shift? What can we not spend right now? We did everything that we could with city management direction, and all the departments said, okay, we can find savings here just to prepare ourselves for the unknown is what we did. Anytime we could find reductions, we did. We compared revenue and expenses constantly. We ran it daily at some points, and we're constantly just monitoring it to see what was going on. So with that, I'm going to present to you the unaudited, so we are still closing up the year, so there still could be some changes, but they're going to be minor, the financial status report of where we ended up. So first, we're going to go about our source category. So when we talk about the general fund, it's made up of local sales tax, intergovernmental, and those are our two largest categories. So we kind of focus on those two. And I think that those were the areas we were the most uncertain about because we assumed with stay-at-home orders, spending would stop, stores were closed. We didn't know, and those are our biggest pieces of the pie, and we were projecting potentially a significant loss should things go the worst way possible. We also had charges for services. Charges for services is it's when departments charge for things. So you could do sports fees or permitting, and we knew that we were going to close sports just due to the shutdown and the government orders. So we had permitting, but that was really the driver. And you'll see we have property tax, which we'd feel is pretty much unchanged, franchise fees, and we're not going to talk about transfers. We're not talking about transfers, sir. You can see there's nothing to talk about, 0% to talk about. So in total, I'm going to skip down to the bottom to what everybody is going to look at. Is if you look at our 2020 budget to actuals, where we came in at, we actually came in $10 million over budget. So we did our preliminary estimates. We were like, okay, if this happens, we had a contingent budget. We adopted our budget flat for 21. So our 20 budget mirrors our 21 number. So just kind of keep that in mind when Andrea goes into the next piece. So there's two specific areas I want to highlight. The one area we were concerned about was local sales tax. Before COVID or before March, we were trending about 5% over. So we were thinking, all right, cities shut down, restaurants are going to shut down, there's tons of stores shut down, this one's we're going to watch. We were wrong, I guess, in our assumptions, which is good. We didn't know what was going to happen, and we were prepared for us to not meet our budget numbers. We exceeded our budget numbers, which is great. So everyone shopped. It did change their spending. So looking at the reports, you could see that people ate out less, but shopped more at grocery stores and things like that, and that there was some foods or like sit down was closed, but drive-throughs went up, and vehicles, which we weren't sure was really going to happen, actually did really well. So across the board, we just saw some interesting things. Hotels and tourism was not great. So I wanted to also get down to charges for services. So charges for services is, again, like I had said, those are those fees that people charge. So we did shut down sports programs. We did shut down the pool for the entire summer. We didn't have summer camp. So we did see some loss of revenue. However, you can see that we are up $7.1 million or 52%. That was not by accident. If you remember, and we did this budget this way, a lot of that is really driven by permit revenue.
Right.
So we adopt our budget strategically and on purpose at $6 million for community development, and then Public Works does that, like another $2 million, and we adopt it flat. Anything above that, we use for one time. So we're hoping to get some one-time savings. We do that because our general capital fund doesn't produce a lot of funding to provide asset replacement or new capital projects. So that is strategic. So when you see that 7.1, it doesn't shock us. However, our estimates in the budget projections will reflect that, but we are going to continue to do that just because housing and construction is so volatile. And I think we've all been through I think we're all scared a little bit from the housing bubble that burst, and we felt it a lot. Surprise is growing and it's doing great. However, we are always cautious about that line item. So while you see that's up 7.1 million, that one actually doesn't shock me. I'm more pleasantly surprised about the local sales tax.
But residential permits were up almost 40% over last year.
Yeah.
Right,
Yes.
right
Mayor.
during COVID. I mean,
And
just-
Mayor, you should see it now. Like Chris Boyd is almost at his budgeted revenue. He's at least halfway through 50% of his budgeted revenue through the year.
Yeah.
With the first quarter. So
yeah.
maybe I'm speaking too far ahead, but that's 21. We're talking about 20.
More good news.
It's good news. Like we had a lot of bad news to deliver, and we came and it was really sad, and there was no jokes and no fun facts, and it was very somber budget presentation. And I know Vice Mayor Judd missed our fun facts. So I apologize. We'll try to pep it up a little bit more should the revenue come in as well as it has been. So in other news, we have our expenses. So when we talk about general fund expenses, we talk about personnel, we lump them into categories. We have personnel, supplies, services, capitals, and then we're not going to talk about the other one. So personnel, you can see, I'll just skip down to the bottom because that's where everybody's going to go. So we did have savings of $13 million. So I want to caveat that by that was strategic. That was because the city management was very active and said, we are going on a hiring freeze. We are eliminating non-essential spending. We are not doing travel. We are not doing training. We are closing pools. We had to furlough staff. He had to make some very hard decisions. But it was all really just to protect the city and make sure that we came out okay and that we weren't in the reverse situation where we overspent or we had a $13 million revenue shortfall and never stopped spending. So I believe absolutely it was the right thing to do, especially because surprise is a beautiful Cinderella story of what happened out of COVID, but it doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet, So we do have to be cautious and still monitor our spending. But this is something that it's not something that we could duplicate every year, this $13 million of savings. We did sacrifice. We did eliminate services. So the residents obviously felt it. There was no senior center. There was a lot of sacrifices that we gave up and a lot of services that we gave up. So while there's this savings, it's not something that we can do year over year. So I just want to make sure that's over a quarter's worth of savings. So a third of the year almost relatively, about 4 months of savings. So that's not something that we can't do that again. So I'm just prefacing I don't want to come back and say, hey, well, we did it before. We hope to never, ever, ever experience what we experienced last year again. So we set our budget. We are lean. I think we all know this, and we only ask for what we can do. Personnel, we had a lot, but that was because we had to do some furloughs, and we had services because we canceled services. We didn't need to pay for some of our contractors. We couldn't have people on site. So I'm rambling, but I just want to
We got it.
just want to make sure that that was pretty clear.
Next year we have big savings.
That's what Vice Mayor, exactly
That's
the
what she was
opposite of what
hoping.
I was saying. So it is possible. However, we cannot run any programs and no one can have any fun ever. So
No, and that's a good point. Management, Mike specifically, did a great job of cutting everything back. We were all scared. We didn't know what was going to happen. We'd go in there and say, well, what's going to happen?
Right.
None of us knew. So this is a great result. Nice job, Mike.
I agree. And imagine like if you were one of the tourism driven cities, because that's an area that's been hit the hardest. Like if we were in Anaheim or in Orlando, I'm sure that their budgets are a completely different story than ours, because we just our market is different, and that's good. However, we've felt it more so in like a housing bubble. So anytime that there's a blip, you don't know what that blip's going to be. So another positive, we just see is ray of sunshine here.
Fun facts.
This is a great fun fact. So our Health Benefits Trust Fund, my fantastic boss, Andrea, the HR director, and Jeff Murray in legal led the charge last year of bringing forth a policy change to our Health Benefits Trust. So basically, what we used to do is we used to budget for the Health Benefits Trust, and we would transfer what was budgeted. That was brought to council, and great decision by you guys to approve that policy. That policy just alone saved the general fund $1.4 million of that personnel savings that you saw. So it's those little things that make a really big difference and are very impactful. So just kudos to her and the team that put that together, because that was an ingenious idea to save money. And it wasn't a little bit of money. Like $1.4 million is a significant amount of money. So good job, boss.
Thank you. And for part of that change is really when we started the self-insurance fund, which this is, the concept was that we transferred the budgeted amount in order to make sure we had enough fund balance and reserves in that insurance. Once we've had enough experience and history behind us, I think that allowed us to be able to transition into this mode of more of break even in that fund than before, when we were trying to save and build up that reserve. So timing was important.
So with all of that good news, I'm going to hand it over to Andrea to talk about what we think we could do in the future. I mean, I think we tried to paint a picture, but we'll kind of go through it a little bit more clear for 21.
So for 2021, so tonight we're talking about a contingency budget amendment. As Holly mentioned, at the budget retreat in March, we discussed really what the needs of the city were. So we worked on the budget for 8 months prior to March, determining what the departments need. What does that look like? So during the budget retreat, we talked about it. Although we did not fund those needs, we took that amount, we placed it in contingency, and basically said, we'll see how it goes.
And Andrea, why did we place it in contingency?
So we placed it in contingency to allow for a moment like this, to say, if we can afford it, we want to be able to bring this forward.
It also gave us budget authority.
It gave us the budget authority, yes. So we had the
state.
Correct. Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
that's
So
a key thing.
when we're going to the budget, we set our ceiling with the state of budget authority.
Right.
We cannot change that ceiling no matter what. We may bring budget amendments during the year, but those budget amendments come from our contingency. So we can never increase that ceiling. So we set the ceiling high for a moment like this to say, hey, guess what? We can actually afford these needs that we identified during the budget process. So let's go ahead and move forward with those and move it from contingency into our operational. And this is why we did that, to allow for us to be able to move forward with these ads. Because like Holly mentioned, a lot of the stuff, we'll go through it in more detail. Their needs. We need to have these increases. We discussed that during the retreat. So glad we can be here. But one of those things that we talked about doing of this phased budget approach that we talked about is, hopefully we can bring these things in as we can afford them. Fortunately, we can do it here tonight with this one amendment. But the revenue monitoring is really what we wanted to look at. And that's where Holly was focusing on that June financial status. So something I'm hoping to capture and communicate clearly is our revenues. So we were watching our revenues very closely, because That is whether we can afford it or not. So the 21, we adopted our budget flat for 20. So we basically took 20, adopted it for 21. So you can see our adopted budget was the 49.7 and the 37.8. We're focusing on these two categories because this is the one that was subject to that sales tax potential decreases. So our pre-COVID budget, so these were our projections prior to COVID. So this is what we were working on. We estimated 52.1 in local sales tax and 39.1 in the intergovernmental. Our FY20 actuals, so what we experienced in 20 at this point, the local sales tax has exceeded our FY21 projections. Intergovernmental hasn't exceeded, but very close. So this gives us that confidence moving forward that our sales tax is in line with our projections. It's actually exceeding our local sales tax slightly. Intergovernmental is a little low. So this is something that we want to look at just to try to capture that snapshot of what does it look like, where are revenues at in order to move forward with these expenses that we're adding to the budget. So any questions on that? Okay, so the department request. When we were going through the budget, our focus and direction from the city manager was maintaining level of service and taking care of what we already have. So although we're a growing city, we're also an aging city. So we do have some infrastructure needs that we need to focus on. So that really was the focus of the budget. It was, what do we need to continue our current level of service? So there wasn't a lot of additional things. You can see there was contract increases. So that's a lot of stuff. We have contracts in place. They're increasing. We're required to do them. We have some new positions. We had some public safety increases. I'll detail those out later. Community development, the permit increases that we're seeing, we gave them a position. So what do we need to maintain that level of service? Some new infrastructure and asset replacement was also another focus. So in total, what this budget amendment is going to do, which the first part of this presentation, we're talking about FY contingency, really the budget retreat conversation. We have some additional stuff that we're going to discuss tonight, but wanted to focus on what was already presented to council during that budget retreat. So in total, a $3.8 million increase to the general fund. What makes that up is 12 additional FTE that are going to be added. We do have 4 total police positions, 4 fire medical position increases as well. Building inspector, that is one. Inspector is where, when we talk to our community development, engineering, and fire, of really what could we do to help you guys make sure to provide customer service to our, to our businesses that are trying to get our permits. That was an area that they had identified. And to note, the recreation specialist, that was the number one priority. We want to provide those programs to our residents. So we wanted to still add that. However, we will not fill that position until the programs are in place and we can run that. So that is something that we'll hold that position until we make sure that there's those programs and the work for them to do. Supplies and services increases. So just a couple of the big ones. Facilities operations, we continue to grow. We have some new facilities that we're taking on. That's an increase in some of those costs. We are increasing some contract planners, some contract dollars for those permit plan review fees to help assist our staff. The increase for library operations, that's a contract increase that was from Maricopa County, from the county that operates it for us. We also have Hollyhock extended library hours. So we are adding some additional budget authority for those hours. Again, right now with COVID, we're not running at the same capacity or services that we would at a different time. So these expenses may not be impactful. And some of this, we may have the budget authority, but we won't open and run and increase those costs until we can actually open back up.
Right.
But we want to provide the authority for when we can implement that as quickly as possible. So we have some operating capital, some one-time vehicles for police, for those inspectors. We're also getting an automated fingerprint identification system. That one cost $80,000, and I think that'll be a very well received. I know Councilmember Winters, you had asked on that one, so that is something that we're excited about, our PDA. Some additional funds that are receiving money, some minor going to ground ambulance for operations and maintenance. As that fund continues and we add ambulances, they need costs to maintain. A lot of these adds that were non-general fund, we weren't as focused during the budget process on eliminating all the adds to these funds because they weren't as sales tax dependent as the general fund. However, we tried to be as mindful as we could to not increase in case the economy did slow down, in case it had decreases and people couldn't pay their utility bills or ambulance bills. So some of these ads are just those things that we left off the table that we thought we could operate without impacting those level of services. So in our highway user revenue fund, we're adding a position for the intelligent transportation system. And they can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's to manage the signals throughout the city. So currently we have one individual that manages all of the traffic signals, the timing, any issues that happens with that. So we're adding a position to help manage that in our city. In our sports and tourism, we had some comp and class. We also had asset replacement. The sports and tourism fund is responsible for the stadium, for the fields. The fields are kept at a Major League Baseball standard, so those have to be rehabbed after each season in those facilities. So it does get, it can be costly. They're also, when we scrubbed the budget for 21, we reduced sports and tourism's asset replacement pretty significant when we adopted the 21 budget. So the adopted was very low, so now we're coming back with this budget amendment. It's a little bit more significant because of those reductions that we made in 21. We do have some increases, sewer and solid waste. Overall, we are seeing growth in the city, so we're having an increase in postage, mailings. That we also have our solid waste operations. Although the recycling program being put on hold is saving money overall, we do have an increase in landfill cost. Just the tonnage of trash that's going to the landfill has increased. Our water ops, we're looking at a reclassification for the utility billing field staff. We did increase a water conservation vehicle, and printing postage and mail, you see that's a credit in this one. That was just trying to right size the budget. In the water fund, we didn't need as much of that line item as other funds. So we netted that with the other items. But that's why I have the brackets on that. So in total, the other thing that we focused on was our asset replacement. These were this is the delta for the 21 requests that we had from those departments. Sports and tourism is in here again. That's not a duplicate. I just wanted to provide you guys with a complete picture of everything that we did for asset replacement. The other funds that you see there, the communications, the audiovisual, the HSCV, information technology, those are the asset replacement funds. That was another policy change and implementation that we did for 21, that each department that manages those assets will now have its own asset replacement fund to manage those dollars, let them carry forward year after year, trying to focus more on that infrastructure and maintaining the quality of that. Some of the capital projects that we approved, City Hall security improvements, landscaping, that's the water conservation, grass removal from some of those medians, fire access modifications for one of the drive-throughs for the trucks to have better access and not bottom out. We do have a lot of our projects are being funded through GEO bond funding, which leaves this list a little bit on the lighter side. So with that, we have additional items to talk about, and we'll kind of summarize everything at the end. But do you guys have any questions on those items that were part of the 21 budget retreat discussion?
Councilman Sanders.
I can't see
him.
Thank you, Mayor.
I knew that. I'll probably break it.
It all makes sense, sticking to your end of the bargain, everything looks good. My question is, we're not going to have the big savings like we had. Revenue, we had savings there, we had revenues were greater than we anticipated. We set this year's budget based on fiscal year 20 performance, and we were short there too. So are we gonna outgrow our britches halfway through this year? I mean, are we gonna need more personnel? Because it seems like we're not putting enough out, right, to keep up with growth. Do you see that being an issue? And of course, budget authority set, and I get that, but do you see us running into an issue where we can't provide the services that we want?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Sanders, we always adopt some contingency in our budget authority to allow for changes throughout the year. So we do approach the budget conservative and we make our estimates, but we monitor that. And during that process, we can add stuff. So right now what we're doing, we looked at the budget, we realized that, hey, we can afford it. So let's add those services. Let's add those expenses because our revenue can handle it. So we'll do the same thing. In 3 months, if we're still seeing growth coming in, great. If we're still seeing the economy booming, if we're still seeing those revenue increases, we can have those considerations of what else can we do? Is there something that we need to think about, add? Is there a level of service that we're not maintaining because our growth is outpacing the service? So we typically try to make sure any additions or changes are fully vetted through the budget process, just to make sure everything has big picture, just make sure everything is equally evaluated and vetted. However, we can make mid-year adjustments for those items that maybe are identified as a shortfall or an issue to come through and say, hey, we're seeing better revenue, we can make some adjustments.
Yeah, I mean, demand for this money, it's spring loaded, right? We've been waiting for it. Now it's finally here. Our numbers are here and it makes sense to give it up now. I just don't want to shoot short again. Of course, and I think maybe Holly had said, we're already doing great this year, right? CD or Boyd's group is already, on target to blow his budget out of the water. So, I mean, what kind of adjustments do you see being made? I mean, we just kind of look at where we are at that same mid-year and say maybe what adjustments need to be made? Because, I mean, even at this point, like you said, we're, I think we've missed, which is good and bad, right? You don't want to miss opportunities, but at the same time, you don't want to miss on the wrong side. So, I mean, what do you have any suggestions what we would do if we need services?
I think typically, depending on the type of revenue that we're seeing an increase of, so long response for your question, but depending on where we're seeing our increase in revenue. So a lot of our permit revenue, we look at a benchmark of historically, what do we see year over year? And we set our budget at that. Anything and above what we can rely on is considered one time and goes for things like asset replacement. We want to be conservative to not increase a program or service with one-time revenues that we can't rely on, just to ensure we can continue that program. So when we evaluate revenue, we look at, okay, how confident I am that this is going to come in next month and again. So we look at that. And that's where our local sales tax is more of the, based on the economy, we're growing, we have more people living here, how much more revenue are they going to bring in through that sales tax, all of those things. So we'll look at that. And we evaluate as needed, and it really just depends. I don't have a great specific response on, we can do it throughout the year. We just want to make sure we look at big picture and we consider everything before we make a decision, and it's fully vetted, and we're confident and comfortable. Like here today, we talked about in March, we wouldn't come back with an increase until we were absolutely confident. And I think we tend to be on the conservative side just because you'd rather be short. But we realize you may give up opportunity cost of something you didn't provide as a service that you could have. However, with all the unknowns, we went in conservative. And then when we were confident we could add it, we came back and we're here tonight adding it back, saying, yep, we can afford it. Do you guys agree? Are you comfortable? Let's move forward with that cost.
And I think that was the meaning for setting the budget up the way that we did, is it allowed us to be nimble. But, when some of our departments are just crushing it, I mean, we don't, we want to make sure we can grow with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can definitely bring those, bring items forward. We can bring those concerns up and forward for those budget amendments.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And Councilmember Sandberg, just to echo, when we do our budget process, we obviously don't approve all of the requests, right? So we can only get so far down on the list. So we have a good idea of what the departments have already asked for and the needs they've already identified. So when it comes to going through and saying, all right, CD needs help, the next thing that they asked for was X. Okay, is this, and then we would go back to CD and of course the city management and say, budget permitting, if this is going to help you, can we do this? And they're already identified and prioritized. Sometimes priorities change, but through the budget process, that's something that we do, and we already have record of it. So we have everybody's list, and we do have authority. So we adopted our budget with about $70 million of contingency. We do that just to give ourselves flexibility because we come all the time with budget amendments, maybe not to this magnitude, never to this magnitude, but this is a unique circumstance. But I think we have the flexibility to continue to be nimble should we need things, and we already have positions identified. We already know what our next level of things would be that's been vetted through the city management. Of course, they would look through it and we would bring it back to you too. So just to echo that, we have a pretty good idea of what our next steps would be per each department that's been outlined.
Okay, with that, our 21 budget amendment. So in addition to the stuff that we discussed here, so we have additional needs that have been identified. So we did have a comp and class, some MOU increases that were not captured as part of the budget due to timing. We have Fire Station 308 reclassification. We've been hiring firefighters in order to staff this fire station. So this is just the adjustment for some of that supervisory level in there instead of just the entry level, level 1 firefighter. This is for the supervision.
Andrea,
I don't want to say the titles.
For the benefit of the people watching,
Yes.
could you explain comp and class and MOU?
Sure. Yes. Thank you. Sorry. I know we should spell that stuff out. So comp and class. So that is our compensation and classification. So that is something that we are required per code to review all of our salaries for all of the positions within the city. So our HR department will look at that. It's every couple of years that we're required to look at it. And there's the 70th percentile concept. So we look at all of our competitors, our other cities, our other positions that are applicable. And it's really to make sure that we are staying competitive in the market, that our positions are in the 70th percentile. So they're very close and comparable to those other positions in surrounding cities. And that was identified and put into code as a kind of as a requirement just to make sure that we kept up and we continued to recruit qualified and keep qualified people. Our MOU is with our public safety union groups. So that's stuff that we discuss. It's memo of understanding. So that's the stuff we talk about with those representatives. And every year we have some increases or discussions on really what they need to continue to provide the services at the level that they do.
Okay.
So thank you. In addition, we're adding a park ranger. We're part-time to a full-time clerk. And we're also adding additional 3 police officers. We have a lieutenant and 2 officers that we're adding to the budget as well. So in some other funds, that comp and class that we discussed, overall, it's a total of $84,000. We didn't list them out individually, but we do have some minor adjustments in, say, the ambulance fund and other funds for those adjustments that we did make as part of those discussions. The other amendment we're coming forward to is our Fire Station 308 that I just discussed that we've been hiring and onboarding our staff for. So there is a budget amendment for $1.3 million for this fire station. This is a growth eligible project. And what I mean by that is this is serving new growth. So this is eligible to use impact fees for. So this increase, the $1.3 million, will be coming from the Fire EMS Impact Fee Fund. And really, some of these construction cost increases are due to COVID. There's a lot of shortages out there. I believe the one that was really the topic and the concern was lumber, of what kind of lumber are we going to have. And I think our teams do a great job of trying to redesign or work around what is in demand or most expensive as best they can. However, sometimes it's just unavoidable. Lumber is kind of hard to avoid when you're building a structure. So we're hopeful that they don't have a shortage at the time that we're building. However, these are the estimates that are going to be, that are over. So we're moving forward with that. So in summary, I know I talked a lot about different stuff and there's a lot of numbers. So a couple next slides are just trying to capture where we're at. And I mentioned I wanted to make sure that council, that everyone is comfortable that what we're doing here tonight looks like a big number, that we can afford it, that we've evaluated it, that we're confident that we can move forward. So our revenue projections for 21 are pre-COVID. Total was $126.4 million. We had included a 5% local sales tax increase. You saw in FY20, we had a 5.7% increase, and our state shared of 3%. So we're really close to meeting that just with our June numbers. In total, our expense estimates going forward, so our ongoing, is $124.2 million. So with those increases, this is where we will be at. So we're still a balanced budget. We're still being, reasonable even with these adds that we are making. And I tried to summarize it again. So I have 2 slides for this information. But I know it's a lot of numbers and a lot of stuff, but this is all of the impacts to each different fund that you're seeing in the very long budget amendment attachment on the civic clerk item. So this is everything. This is operating and capital. This is everything listed out to that 9.5 total. On this, and you can see what we're impacting our operating. Like I mentioned, we look at everything as ongoing and operating and one time. And there's different revenues that can fund different things, responsibly making sure it comes in. So you can see in total, the general fund, we're increasing by 2.9 operationally. total of $3.6 million for all of those funds for operations. Capital, the asset replacement is really the biggest increase. That stuff we didn't fund. We really scrubbed and cut that in the 21 budget just because we didn't know where we were going to be at. So that's a total of almost $6 million of that budget amendment. And that really is funded with those one-time dollars. So with that,
Councilman
any
Remley.
more questions?
Oh,
I know when I can't,
right off the bat.
can't see you. It's because I haven't been able to look at you.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm glad you waited till she had completed her whole presentation before calling on me, because basically I was going to make a suggestion or a question, a comment. And if you go back to just one slide or so, where you had the pre-COVID budget. One more. Well, I guess that's it.
The revenue pre-covered.
Okay, so before COVID hit, we budgeted that we would get $126 million in revenue for the general fund, I think. Okay. Now, when COVID came along, we said, whoa, we might not do that. We might not make that. So we said, we're going to have to pull in our horns on the expense side of things. However, we still had a budget of $124 million. It's just we pulled a whole bunch of it aside. And this is some of the money we're talking about today, is bringing some of that back. So it's still the $124 million that we had before.
Yep.
And it looks like we're going to be able to make the 126. Is that what you're saying?
That's what we're saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, now that makes me feel good.
Well, good.
Okay.
I'm glad you got it.
Good.
It's like a
We
warm
want you
hug
to feel
from
good.
budget.
Yeah,
Okay.
Glad you're feeling good.
I need to feel good.
That's what I want at
you.
the end. I'm glad you're happy.
Councilman Duffy.
Thank you, Mayor. Good job, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I like the approach. Take it basically day at a time. Don't overdo it just because we think we can. Because you said something good there, that we're not out of the woods yet.
No.
But you also are doing something. We're growing fast, and trying to keep public safety up with that is important, because we all sit up here every year saying how safe we are, and to not address those needs,
That's right.
that's not a service anybody wants. We want to keep up. And I know police and fire want more, but you can't just, I like the way you're going about it. You're addressing exactly what is needed as we grow, especially farther out in the Asante area. That's a lot of coverage for police. So I like the approach. I like staying with public safety. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Good. That's all we got. Good job.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Yay. All right. So I think with that, we'll
You have to adopt it.
adopt it. You have to officially
You
say
have to
yes.
officially say yes before we
I'm
leave
not
this
getting up
table.
I'm not getting up until you
I'll
say
entertain a motion.
yes.
Good job. We'll see you later.
Yep. Nope.
Yeah,
we're
I
not
was
going anywhere, sir.
Well, second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please cast your vote. Or all those, please cast your vote. Okay.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
All right. Item number 25.
Consideration and action pertaining to an amendment to Surprise Municipal Code, Chapter 2, Article 2, Division 1, Section 2-21, setting the date of the oath of office for certain elected officials. Ordinance number 2020-31.
Good
Welcome,
evening,
Robert.
Mayor and Council. So I have to say at the onset of this, no one enjoys election season more than the city attorney's office. I think we're only second to the clerk's office, so it definitely keeps us busy. But the item before you right now is a proposed amendment to Surprise Municipal Code, Section 2-21, and that provision pertains to the city clerk administering oaths of office. And the current provision provides that the city clerk administers that oath to all elected officials in January. That provision is based on a premise that all newly elected council members' terms begin in January, when elected incumbents' terms expire. So that premise remains correct, and any council member who's elected by the voters, that's applicable too, because it is the voters who set the term of those council members. However, that premise is not necessarily correct when it comes to appointed council members. And as you're all aware, there was litigation initiated in the Maricopa Superior Court, and that resulted in my office scrutinizing current state law and our city code to ensure that we were aligned with all of those provisions. And based on that review, we determined that there is a very persuasive argument that in a very limited circumstance, the term of appointed council members, and these are council members that were appointed to a vacancy that occurred 30 days or greater before the nomination petition deadline, those terms should conclude at the conclusion of the election process. And that's based on several laws, one being our Surprise Municipal Code, Section 2-22, which says verbatim, if a vacancy occurs, and it's discussing the term for appointed council members, it says if a vacancy occurs more than 30 days before a nomination deadline, and here's really the operative language. The term of that person appointed in accordance with this section will expire at the next regularly scheduled council election. So then that begs the question: when the election process concludes, when does that conclude? And we find the answer to that in Surprise Municipal Code, Section 14-4, and it states, any candidate who receives at the primary election a majority of all votes cast shall be, and here again is the operative language, shall be declared to be elected to the office for which he is a candidate, effective as of the date of the general election. So when a council member who is appointed, or actually a council member who is elected at a primary because they obtained the majority of votes and they are running against an appointed incumbent, arguably and very persuasively, their term ends, the incumbent's term ends the date of the general election. All right. If there's a runoff and it goes to a general election, then we don't have that operative language in effect. So we have to look at when the election would become the process concluded, and that would be on the date of the canvass of the general election when the city clerk issues a certificate of election. So that would be the date of the canvass. So with that all in mind, our current code, Section 2-21, the oath of office, that provides the city clerk should administer the oath of office to any elected official in January, doesn't seem to align with the narrow situation in which you have a successful candidate against an appointed incumbent. And therefore, we're proposing this amendment to Section 2-21. And it's fairly straightforward. It says, in addition to the January swearing in, that the city clerk shall administer the oath of office on the date of the general election to any newly elected official who receives the majority of all votes cast at the primary election, or on the date of the general election canvass to any newly elected official who received the highest number of votes at the general election. Here's the qualifier: against an appointed incumbent filling a vacancy that occurred more than 30 days before the nomination petition deadline. So this one would impact any candidate that's elected and who will replace a previously elected council member. This is only in this narrow situation. So with that, it's the city attorney's office recommendation that you approve this amendment to align our current code internally, both internally and with state law.
Okay. I don't see any questions. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance number 2020-31.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
Item number 26.
Consideration and action pertaining to an amendment to Surprise Municipal Code, Chapter 3, Article 4, Section 3-41D, Personnel Appeals Board Composition and Quorum, Ordinance 2020-34.
All right, welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight I have for your consideration a slight change to the HR Municipal Code, which is Section 3-41D. That's regarding the composition and the quorum of the Personnel Appeals Board. The Personnel Appeals Board is made up of 7 volunteers, and they're the board that hears any type of appeal of any disciplinary action by a classified employee. So that's suspension, demotion, or termination. However, in the code, it currently states that if you hold a municipal office or are an employee by the city or any other city, you are unable to serve on this board. The change we would like to propose is to state that if you are compensated by the city in holding a municipal office or as employed by the city of Surprise, that would prohibit you from being a member of the Personnel Appeals Board. However, if you are employed by another municipality, another city,
And live
this
in
change would
Surprise.
enable you to participate as a member of the Personnel Appeals Board.
You live in Surprise.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So if there's any questions.
Good to me. Okay, any questions? No questions, so
Sounds complicated.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2020-30. I'm sorry. I move to approve ordinance 2020-34.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. No other questions? Please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
All right, Lise. Good job.
60 seconds?
Yeah, you know.
Consideration
Item
and
number
action.
27.
I'm sorry. Consideration and action pertaining to City Council support of the implementation of a temporary extension of premises permit process for local restaurants by executive order of the mayor.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Just like to introduce you to our newest addition to the community development team, Assistant Director Tiffany Kopp. She's a returning employee. We I guess lent her out for a while to another city to help make them great, and then brought her back to us once she had accomplished her purposes there. Anyway, she's doing a fantastic job in community development. You've probably dealt with her on code enforcement issues, among other issues.
Right.
And she is as responsive as it gets. I'm certainly enjoying our chance to work with her. But this is Tiffany.
Good
Thank you.
evening. Thank you for having me. I am struggling to
Welcome,
locate
Tiffany.
my PowerPoint here.
Do you ever get the Fry's Shopping Center guy squared away?
Yes, sir. We are actually working on that. There are several property owners in that complex, and so we've got them all working together
Good.
to hopefully do that all in one fell swoop.
Super.
I am not seeing my presentation on here, so I
Tom to the rescue.
Tom will help you.
believe so. Last presentation of the night. There had to be a hiccup. It is the temporary extension of premise. Oh.
Huh?
Well, the presentation is not there, but I will gladly walk you through what I had prepared tonight. Tonight's presentation came about actually at the request of Councilmember Sanders. At the last regularly scheduled meeting, he asked staff to come together and to, sorry, I'm too short to lower the mic. Is that better? Okay. At the last meeting, Councilmember Sanders asked staff to come together and develop a mechanism that would allow restaurants and bars to expand their service area in light of COVID. And so staff did just that. We came together. Big thank you to Jody. She very quickly pulled together some samplings from other cities of what they had done to address the same issue, to figure out how to rapidly assist restaurant and bar owners with extending their premise. And essentially what we came up with after consulting with our internal stakeholders, public safety, engineering, and legal, is a temporary extension of premise. And so what that looks like, if you're familiar with our special event application, very similar process. The applicant would come in, fill out an application, basically give us a site plan, let us know what they're trying to do in that space. They would, that would then be evaluated by staff. And then that permit, once it's approved, would be good for 180 days. We did include in that process an option to renew the permit for a second 180-day period at the discretion of staff, and provided we're still in this COVID situation. The TEP obviously is designed to ensure that diners have a safe dining experience. We want to make sure that they're socially distanced, but we also want to make sure that we're addressing the needs of the restaurant community and that they can keep their doors open. There are some limitations of the temporary extension of premise process. I want to be clear, it does not revoke or invalidate the building permit process. So if there's a need to permanently expand a building, a patio, the applicant would still need to come in and follow the building permit process for that. This is simply a temporary solution to allow them to extend into a patio space that's maybe unused currently. They could put up a tent on their property and allow the dining to expand into that area. The TEP does not limit the city's requirements for business licenses or any other relevant laws that govern restaurants and bars. Limitations of the TEP: any restaurant that would be seeking to extend their service area also for alcohol is still subject to the state's requirements for doing so. So you'll notice on the application that was attached in the packet, the last 2 pages are the state's application to extend the alcohol service area. So, excuse me. Essentially, an applicant would come in, complete the TEP application if they wanted to extend their alcohol service area as well. Once that's approved, the entire packet gets submitted to the state for approval. In the TEP process, we have waived all fees, so there's no fee for applicants. And then we have also offered expedited review.
Great.
Tonight, council will have the opportunity to approve the TEP program. The mayor may then issue an order establishing this process. If that happens, staff will complete a media release to make public that this process exists. And then we will also add the TEP application and process to the city's website to help publicize it. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have.
Great. There's no questions, but I want to thank Councilman Sanders for taking the initiative to bring this forward.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank Jody for doing the research, and I want to thank you and the rest of the staff for working on this diligently.
Absolutely. My
Because I
pleasure.
think it's going to be very helpful if we approve it, which I think probably will. So, Councilman or Vice Mayor Judd.
Just a real quick question. So if we approve this, is it going to affect immediately, or do
Yes,
we have
sir.
to wait 30 days?
Tomorrow, we have the media release queued up and the website ready to go.
Perfect. Excellent. This is a great idea. Thank you.
Councilman Sanders.
We made a lot of assumptions, yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Tiffany, thank you for the presentation, getting it all ready, and thank you to staff for, just kind of jumping on this request. I mean, I think it's very well known that this council is very pro-business. We do like to support our small businesses, and I think this is just another way to do it. The COVID impact has impacted businesses in different ways, and I think this just is another way to help them out. And I just, again, I want to thank you and thank the council, and I would just hope that you would consider approving this as well. So thank you.
Okay, Councilman Remley.
Very good presentation.
Would have been
I
better
have
if
one
I had
question.
slides.
I have one question. When you say expedited approval, how quick can these folks get this approved so they can be in business?
Our target is a 5 to 7 day window. I want to caveat that by saying that is simply the extension of premise to serve food. If they want to serve alcohol in that area as well, they are beholden to the state's review
Of
timeline
course,
for
that's
that
the
piece
state.
of the process, which we have no control over. But our internal expedited review, we're targeting a 5 to 7 day window. So hoping to turn them around as quickly as we get them.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. Okay, I think that's it. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to support the implementation of an expedited and free of charge temporary extension of premises permit process for local restaurants and bars by the executive order of the mayor.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. If there's no other questions or comments, please cast your vote.
Unanimous yes vote, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Future agenda items.
Yeah, I'd like to add something, Mayor.
Okay.
So I'd like to get a presentation on the feasibility of adding another regional park to Surprise. And what we're interested in is the cost to build, the cost to operate and to maintain, what kind of programming could be used to mitigate operational expenses, sports and tourism benefit for said regional park, and also economic impact. And then the biggest question, how do we fund it?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
I'll third it.
And you'll third it? Okay, so it's moved. Will you fourth it, Roland, or? Okay. Anyway, okay, good. I would like to add something. I'd like to ask the legal department, Robert, and your team to come back with us to add language for televised commission meetings to include PSPRS and the Veterans Disability Commission. Okay? All right. Yeah, I know, but it isn't in the ordinance. So the legal will add it back in the ordinance, so it's memorialized. Okay, let's see. Council reports. How about Councilwoman Hayden?
Thank you. Most of all, I've been doing a lot of Zoom meetings. We've been inundated with it. The city's been really busy trying to catch up, and it's been wonderful because we're trying to change things to work in our new environment, to keep things positive and going forward. I mean, I watched one today on the arts and how they're going to try different cities, how they're working towards improving how they produce things and that we can't have groups, how we're going to, it's just very interesting to have all this. So I've been doing that a lot. And then I want to just say, please keep yourself safe. I know you don't like to be home, but home is safe. So please take care of yourselves. Okay.
Okay. Councilman Winters.
Nothing this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Judd.
Thank you, Mayor. So real quick, I'm adding a second meet and greet to my agenda. So we're going to have a meet and greet at Spencer's Place on Saturday morning, October 17th. So if the Wednesday night meetings don't work very well for you, consider attending that one. I look forward to seeing some new faces at this one.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Duffy.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Nothing tonight? Nope. Councilman Remley, you have anything?
I have something.
Uh-oh.
There's a new ballpark being constructed in the original town site. Ground is already broken on that.
Yes.
And if you want to stop over there by Gaines Park, you'll see the new Gaines Park ball field going up. In the meantime, the turf is just about getting ready where they can be playing on the surface at the rebuilt ballpark at the Bicentennial Park over there. So lot of good things happening. Hopefully everybody starts wearing masks. Keep it up, because good things are happening in our city, and largely because we're all wearing these masks. I'm really really proud of everybody. So it's been a pleasure to have served you this last 4 years, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 coming. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Sanders.
Thank you, Mayor. On the 23rd of September, I had attended a Zoom meeting with the Surprise Youth Council on their pitch night. I think it was Councilman Duffy. I think that was what we sat through in here last year, but they did it on Zoom. And again, I mean, the youth just have just great projects and very energetic. And it was really nice to see them staying engaged even through all the stuff that we've got going on. The mayor and I attended, I think it's True Fades barbershop for that ribbon cutting. Cleaned up cleaned up a little on the side. And I did a council conversation with two of our council members, actually a council member and a vice mayor today. So that should be hopefully out, I don't know, in a week or so. That's it was fun. We had a good time. But also to our small businesses. I mean, again, I think there's a lot of resources out there, and please take advantage of them. We just got a notification from our economic development director about those small business grants that go through the 16th of October. A little bit over half of the money's been used. So there's another 117,000 left. So I would encourage you, if you're a small business, to look up on the City of Surprise website, because there is money available for you if you need it. And that's it. So thank you.
Yeah, good reminder. I just had a couple things. On September 23rd, we celebrated Water Heroes Day. And we sometimes take for granted the work involved to keep our water clean, safe, and reliable. And I'd like to thank our water heroes working for Surprise. I know they work tirelessly to keep our water in pristine condition. Mm-hmm. Two of our water heroes, Amy Peterson and Jennifer Davidson, did an outstanding job presenting on water conservation on behalf of the City of Surprise at a Westmark Issue Committee meeting. So thank you to Amy and Jennifer. Good job. Surprise is still looking for volunteers for our day of service, which is this Saturday, October 10th. So for more information, please call Larry Garcia at our HSCV department. So that's all I got. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Are you seconding? Second? Okay. Moving to second. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Adjourn.
We have to go.
Now there's a new way to connect with the City of Surprise with the My Surprise app. Help us locate and report city-maintained service requests, such as broken streetlights, potholes on city streets, graffiti, flooded roadways, and more. The My Surprise app also allows you to pay your utility bill, receive public safety alerts, get reminded about your trash and recycling day, and connect with your city council members. Join us in building a beautiful, safe city we can all enjoy. Download the My Surprise app today.
Isn't always safe.
And it may not be safe to call 911.
But you are not alone.
You can text 911 in the Maricopa region.
Call if you can, and text if you can't.
Some coronavirus relief is coming in the form of business grants and funding for social services. City Council approved $275,000 in funding for a new small business relief grant program and $155,000 for meal programs, water utility assistance, and homeless outreach. Small businesses in Surprise with fewer than 25 employees and less than $2 million in revenue can apply for a small business relief grant beginning September 14th. These must be businesses that were affected by Governor Ducey's closure orders related to COVID-19. For more information, visit surpriseaz.gov/smallbusinessgrant. For water utility assistance, you can call the city's Hope Line at 623-222-4673. Surprise also offers a number of programs to assist with rent and mortgage payments, as well as housing rehabilitation to ensure the home is healthy and safe to occupy. You can find information on those programs at surpriseaz.gov/housing.
You can give back to the community and help keep Surprise beautiful by volunteering at our next day of service on Saturday, October 10th. We're looking for volunteers to complete projects throughout the city, including landscaping, painting, and debris removal. For safety, participants will be required to wear face coverings and will be split into small groups with staggered check-in times beginning at 8 a.m. To register for this event, please contact Larry Garcia with our Neighborhood Services Department at larry.garcia@surpriseaz.gov or 623-222-1522. As development continues around the city, we are working on a couple of initiatives focused on smart and sustainable growth. One of those is an update to our land development ordinances and design standards. It's like a rule book for developing within the city. The initiative, called Develop Next, is entering the final phase before adoption. 2 public outreach meetings are coming up on September 22nd and 29th at 6 p.m. Both will be held virtually. To learn more about this initiative, the timeline, and how to participate in those meetings, please visit surpriseaz.gov/developnext.
A small commitment at least one day a week helps reduce ground-level ozone pollution and helps us all breathe easier. Bike instead of driving. Ride public transportation. Carpool. Walk to lunch. Skip the drive-thru and go inside. Sweep instead of using leaf blowers. Fuel up after dark. Become a creature of new habits this summer. Commit to one day and help keep ozone away. Visit cleanairmakemore.com to learn how you can help.
We celebrated a big grand opening on September 24th. Costco cut the ribbon on their new warehouse near Waddell Road and Saraville Avenue. This follows the opening of the Costco gas station in early August. Thanks to all of our residents who voted Costco as the #1 most wanted in our retail survey each year. Your vote helped us to recruit them to Surprise.
Nicole.
% of all thefts from vehicles are the result of people leaving their car doors unlocked or leaving items of value in the car. The sound of opening an unlocked car, it's music to a thief's ears. Lock it or lose it.
Bad driving affects us all. The population is up, and so are accidents. So when you're on the road, think safe and pay attention. One bad decision can impact a life forever. Drive wise, Surprise. Have old batteries, chemicals, electronics, or paint you need to get rid of? If so, you'll want to sign up for our household hazardous waste pickup event. Residents can schedule appointments through October 2nd to have hazardous waste picked up directly from their homes. You can do that through the My Surprise app or by calling customer service at 623-222-1920. Scheduled pickups will occur October 5th through October 16th. For more details, including a list of acceptable and unacceptable items, please visit surpriseaz.gov/HHW event.
By now, I'm sure you've seen that face coverings are not only required in the city of Surprise, but all of Maricopa County when you are in a public setting and unable to maintain 6 feet of distance from those who don't live in the same residence. This is an effort to curb the spread of COVID-19. Public settings include, but are not limited to, grocery stores, retail stores, pharmacies, restaurants and bars when not seated at a table, recreational facilities, libraries, public transportation, public places where lines or crowds form, and special events. Face coverings are recommended by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Arizona Department of Health Services as a way to protect against the spread of coronavirus. There are exceptions to this requirement, including for medical and religious reasons. For details as well as common questions and answers about the emergency proclamation, head to surpriseaz.gov/face coverings. Dysart Unified School District is celebrating their 100-year anniversary. And to mark the occasion, Mayor Skip Hall presented Dysart Superintendent Dr. Kellis with a proclamation recognizing the major milestone. Since 1920, Dysart has been a valuable asset to the Northwest Valley. Today, it provides education and support services to more than 24,000 pre-K to high school students. Happy 100th anniversary, Dysart.